Director Kelly, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear just fine.
Wonderful. Student Advisor LeBon, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful.
Good evening. Welcome to the Arlington Public Schools Board meeting. It is 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. May I please have everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Madam Clerk, can we please take a roll call attendance?
Yes. Director Ray,
Director Ray is absent and excused.
Director Kelly,
Here,
Director Kingman,
Here.
President Levesque,
Here.
Director Knapp,
Here.
Student Advisor Schroeder,
Here.
Student Advisor LeBon,
Here.
Superintendent Sweeting.
Here. Thank you. Next, we'll have our approval of the agenda. Is there any amendments to the agenda? May I please have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Madam Clerk, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda.
Director Kelly,
aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
The agenda is adopted. Next, we'll have our approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes to approve tonight. We have our regular meeting minutes from October 10th, and we have our special board study session meeting minutes from October 17th. We're going to do these one at a time. Do we have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from October 10th?
Make a motion, we approve the regular meeting minutes from October 10th.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the October 10th meeting minutes. Madam Clerk?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. Those minutes are approved. Next, we have our meeting minutes from our special board study session from October 17th. Do we have a motion to approve?
And move that we approve the special board study session meeting minutes from October 17th, 2022.
1 second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the October 17th special study session minutes. Madam Clerk?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. Those minutes are now approved. The next thing on our agenda is our public comment portion. Do we have anyone signed up on Zoom or in person to speak to the board?
We do not have any public comments this evening.
Thank you. We'll proceed with the next item on our agenda, and that's our consent agenda. That includes our budget and enrollment reports, our PSC salary agreement 22-23, our personnel report, warrants, our overnight field trip for AHS cross country to state cross country championships, an overnight and out of state trip to WRLC DECA conference, a CTE Perkins 2-year grant application, and our highly capable program. Does anyone want to pull anything from our consent agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Make a motion. We approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Madam Clerk, can we take a vote, please?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. The consent agenda is approved. Next up, we'll have our new business portion of our meeting. The first thing on our new business agenda is our Outdoor Schools Washington grant approval. And this will be presented by Carrie Henderson Burke, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, and Colleen Van Bell, our principal at Camp Prairie Elementary. Welcome.
Thank you so much. We're very excited to be here to talk about the next two items on our agenda. We'll take them in order because each needs a separate approval. So, but I'm going to introduce Colleen Van Bell, principal at Camp Prairie. She is the one who has taken charge and spearheaded these great opportunities for 5th grade kids.
All right, well, this has been sort of a surprise to us. We started down this adventure thinking that we were planning for not this year, but next year. And then we received grant funding and each school received some grant funding. So by the time we put all of that funding together, it was $54,000. So that led us to, well, I guess this isn't next year because now we can actually fund it for the here and now, because that funds every single one of our 5th grade students in the district to attend a 2-day, 3-night outdoor education experience. And then we coupled that with the fact that Cedar Springs Camp in Lake Stevens had not only an available slot, but is excited to be working with entire school districts so that all of the students are receiving the same wonderful experience. So they actually cut our cost for us quite a bit, and again, enabled us to be able to afford to bring every single student with this grant. So at no cost to parents and no cost to the school district. The only parent cost is for them to come for our chaperones, and that's basically a food cost. It's very minimal. So here we are.
I don't know if Arlington has had a outdoor 5th grade camp opportunity in the recent past. I don't remember anything like this. Can you explain a little bit about what this opportunity might entail and what it might look like for our 5th graders?
Sure. So, and I think that you got in your information a sample of what a 3-day schedule might look like. This is what I term as a Cadillac camp, because it means that the staff at camp is there to lend all of their expertise and their wonderful energy to the experience. I went for many, many years as a 5th grade teacher, and it's just you just can't beat the experience for students. So we arrive, students get the opportunity to eat together in a cafeteria type setting with all the great camp songs and all of those things that happen at camp that you just can't duplicate elsewhere. Throughout the 3 days, they receive, I think it's 8 different stations that they go to. Lots of them are connected to the science standards, but some are just those favorite things that you should always do at camp, like learning to build fire. When we did it, we used to use food and things like that they taught you to put fires together. The camp director says one of the favorites is that the kids get to build shelter. And he says, oh, certainly all of his students in Arlington have already been outside doing that. And I was thinking, no, this will be a fabulous opportunity for them to get to do all of those things. So they get to enjoy the outdoors and get science education hands-on for 3 days. And they also have the opportunity, of course, to be with each other. The other benefit that we're going to have them experience as well is they're going to be going with their feeder school. So we're going to have them be mixing with other students that will then be their peers the following year in middle school, which we also thought was sort of a great sort of byproduct of the entire event. Does that sort of answer? Plus you have your campfires and of course all the games and all those things that you do at camp that you just can't replicate anywhere else.
And when is this?
This is in March. And so it's a week long, but it's not a week long. So the first 2 schools go on Monday and leave on Wednesday. And then the next 2 schools actually arrive on Wednesday. And then we take the buses, we flip flop on Wednesday and come back on Friday.
I had a quick question. Curious, how many students overall will there be participating? And do you anticipate you'll be able to continue this awesome experience into the next year for 2024?
Yeah, I think with SVLC, it's about 420 students, and I can't guarantee the grant. However, other school districts in the area have been using this grant for multiple years. So we can also, instead of applying as separate schools next year, we can apply as a district, which I also think gives us heads up on it because that's what they're hoping, right? Is that whole school districts will participate. So no guarantee on the grant, but others have received it for multiple years.
Thank you.
I have one more question. Will there be Wi-Fi and will the children have their phones allowed to come with them, or are they going to have to go through some screen withdrawals?
Well, hopefully elementary students aren't carrying their phones as bad as middle school and high school, because no, there will not be phones. It is in the middle of Lake Stevens, so I'm guessing we will not be able to cut the Wi-Fi. However, no phones. Won't that be great? They will no screen time for 3 days. We should all do that.
I had a quick question. So since there will be no phones, is there a way for these kids to contact their parents at all, like via letter or something like that?
I can only speak to experience from the past that typically it's best if the students don't contact their parents for 3 days. Letters would not probably arrive on time. There would just be certain exceptions to that rule. Like if we did have students who were super homesick or something and needed to talk to a parent, that sometimes can happen. But we'd like them to go and experience a little bit of independence as well.
Thank you.
This year, were you trying for a grant for one school and they gave you a grant for the whole district?
Well, I really had no idea. So one of my teachers had come to me and said, can we look into this? So I had just started down the research process. Like I said, I've done it for years in Stanwood, but we had to earn all that money. So I thought, oh, we're never going to get there. It's fairly expensive. And so she filled out a grant with Outdoor Schools Washington, and we got a grant. And then I said to my colleagues, well, why don't you try just putting it in? And we were told the grant process was closed. So we thought, okay, it's just going to be Kent Prairie this year. We'll just take one school and we'll try it out. The rest of the grant money came through. So here we are. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really awesome. I have a 4th grader, so I'm hoping that we can do this next year.
We apply for the grant.
Are there any more questions from the board about the outdoor schools grant approval? Okay, this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve the outdoor schools Washington grant?
I move that we approve the Outdoor Schools Washington grant.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the grant. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. The grant is approved. Hooray, it's exciting.
Step one down.
And then next, do you want to also talk about your overnight field trip request?
So there's an overnight field trip request because now that the grant money has been approved, we have to approve the field trip itself. So again, we filled this out for the entire district. There are 2 different dates listed, right? The first group for March 20th and through 22nd and 22nd through 24th, but all of the information is there that we've actually already sort of covered through the grant questions and content. So I'll hand the mic back to Colleen in case you have more questions.
Question. Students with special needs or mobility issues, things like that, are they also going to be able to attend?
Yeah, and we'll have to take that on a case by case basis. One of the beauties of having it in Lake Stevens, however, is a student could come for the day if for some reason it wouldn't be appropriate or safe or whatever for them to be there at night. But yes, we'll definitely have to take that. I'm working with the district nurse to be sure that we're accommodating for all of those. Yeah.
It's a great question, and thank you for that answer. Good. Do we have a motion to approve the overnight field trip request for 5th grade students to attend Cedar Springs camp?
Make a motion, we approve the overnight field trip request for 5th grade students to attend Cedar Springs camp.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the overnight field trip request for 5th grade students. Madam Clerk?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. I hope you all come visit.
Thank you. This is really exciting. I want to go back to 5th grade.
You can come visit.
Oh,
though. It'll
okay.
be fun. You know the dates.
Thank you. That's really exciting. Next up on our agenda is our update from our 5:30 site sale. And this will be presented by Brian Lewis, our Executive Director of Operations. Good evening, Brian. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Okay. One more thing here. Good evening, directors. 2019 Arlington Public Schools approved the purchase, or excuse me, the sale of approximately 170 acres located on Highway 530 to Miles Sand and Gravel. The exact date was December 2nd, 2019. I believe President Levesque was the board member here at the time, and I provided updates to the successive boards as we progress through this process with Miles Sand and Gravel. The negotiated selling price was $3 million. The terms of the sale included a deposit of $75,000 into escrow upon execution of the purchase and sale agreement. Applies to the purchase price, and that money was deposited into the escrow account. The completion of the sale is contingent on a couple of situations occurring. One of those is the acquisition, or excuse me, those two are the acquisition of conditional use permits, and following that from Snohomish County, and following that, the acquisition or successful completion of a permit for surface mine reclamation from the Department of Natural Resources. The sale occurred because of the extent of aggregate materials under the surface of the site, and the Miles Sand and Gravel has submitted permits to Snohomish County. They have not finished their conditional use permit application process with them yet. Part of the sale also includes time contingencies that allow for period or extensions of the period of time for this process to be concluded. The first extension, the first period of time was 33 months after the initial effective date of the agreement in December 2019. And then there were three permit period extensions timing beginning on November 30th, 2022 and November 30th, 2023. And then a final period extension, a permit period extension on November 30th of 2024. Now, the buyer can waive any of these extensions at any time and complete the sale. They have not chosen to do so yet, but that's where we are right now with the start of the first permit period extension on November 30th. The escrow account would include an additional deposit of $75,000 to the escrow account, which was scheduled to occur on October 21st. It does apply to the purchase price. And after this permit period expires in November 29th, 2023, then that cash is non-refundable in the same way that the earnest money is also non-refundable. That is for 2 permit extension periods through November 30th, 22 and November 30th, 23. The final permit period, November 30th to 24. It does last a year, so this could extend to November 30th of 2025. The final period requires a payment of $100,000 in cash to the escrow account. And this permit period payment can be refundable if the purchaser is unable to obtain permits by 11/30/2025. If the seller, that would be us, if we default, then we can be responsible for up to $400,000 in the purchaser's direct costs associated with the pursuit of the permits. We're not interested in defaulting on this sale. Defaulting would mean we would take legal steps to end the sale agreement with Miles. We have not done so. I've not received any direction to do so. I'm presuming that we're going to proceed while Miles continues its quest to achieve permits. There has been a change in their permitting activities. They did file a permit in 2020. They have since withdrawn it. The reason that they withdrew the first permit was that there were staff changes that occurred at Snohomish County that were associated with COVID, and it really caused some miscommunication within the county in terms of the permit application and its purpose. So Miles chose to withdraw it, and they've got a second permit application in process that they think is proceeding apace. They think it's more efficient and effective than the first permit application was. This is more the same information about the permit extension period that I provided earlier. So that's where we are at the time. It's kind of a waiting game for us, at least, until we get through November of 2025 is the expiration date on this. Again, as I said, anytime buyers or Miles as the buyer can waive all the contingencies and just go ahead and buy or complete the sale by providing us the balance due $3 million minus these escrow payments or earnest money payments. Any questions?
Thank you for that explanation, Brian. I have a little question. How long ago did they withdraw that first permit and resubmit?
I don't have that information. I'm sorry. I can get that
Was it
from.
real recent or is it?
No,
long
I don't
time?
believe it was recent. I believe it's been within the past 6 months, but not last week or the week before. But I can get a firm date on that and get it to Chris to send to you all.
And then do you have any guesstimates on how long it takes for permitting to get through the county process?
No. 2025. I mean, I'm intellectually prepared for it to take that long. When we signed the deal in 2019, we were making an expression that we were going to allow Miles to take this period of time to get it done. It is not a simple process. There are multiple constituencies that are consulted throughout the process. The positive thing in favor of the sale proceeding is the designation of the site with a mineral rights overlay by the county zoning, which recognizes that there is a deposit of aggregate minerals there that are available for removal.
Brian, I had a quick question as well. The timeline seems extraordinarily long, and I understand that, like you're saying, we're talking about permits and so forth. Looking at everything else in our world that goes up in value and in cost, I'm curious, do you feel comfortable with $3 million? Or, I mean, is that going to be a fair price when they actually take ownership?
I do. We did negotiate a higher price than the assessed value at the time that we negotiated the sale. We did negotiate that period of time with the recognition that it could take that the negotiated 6 years to complete. So I do believe it was a fair deal for the school district.
Okay, thank you. That helps answer that. So you kind of built that into that price and knowing the forecast that many years out that you adjusted for that. Thank you.
I'm wondering, once the sale is final, does that go into like the general budget? Like where, maybe this is a question for Gina. Where does that money
No, I
go?
can answer that question. No, that's a good question. Once the sale is complete, it goes back to the capital projects fund for use in acquiring future properties for the district or building schools for the district.
Just out of curiosity, was there any potential use for this site other than selling it to the Miles?
No, in 1999, the state enacted the Growth Management Act, which precluded the use of any kind of urban development outside of the urban growth area boundaries of any municipality. And this site is well outside of the urban growth area. So it would really not fit any of the purposes that we would have for it.
Thank you.
And currently it's just used as a grazing area.
Yeah, it's
and
pasture
animal
land.
Pasture land.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions from any board members? Right, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on our agenda is our alternative learning experience courses annual report. And this will be presented by Carrie Marsh and Carrie Henderson Burke. Is it the Carrie hour?
It's just, yeah, which one is Carrie Marsh and which one is Carrie HB? That's always the question that comes up. I'm just here to introduce Carrie Marsh, our ALE principal or ALE program guru. So she's got some information to share with you. According to board policy, we share an annual update on our ALE programs.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes, please. Well, hello, I'm Carrie Marsh. I'm the principal at Stillaguamish Valley Learning Center, and this is our annual report for you. Next slide, please, Brenda. The contents of this report, as determined by OSPI, is the ALE student FTE and head count, the ratio of certificated staff to student FTE, and how ALE courses support our district goals. And I've got a few other bits of goodness in there for you as well. So next one, please, Brenda. For our ALE courses, OSPI determines 3 separate ALE courses. So this is OSPI's language, and Arlington School District offers all 3 of these. So site-based is 20% or more of in-person instructional contact time with a certificated teacher. The students at SVLC who are in our on-site program have either 40% time with a certificated teacher or 60%. So we're above the required percentage. Remote is less than 20% of in-person instructional contact time. Currently, Arlington School District only has 2 students in the remote program,
And what that looks like is we're designing instruction using district curriculum, and that's all being taught at home. And then that student and parent meets with our teachers once a week. So it's less than 20% of in-person instruction. And then the online is more than 50% of the course content delivered online. At Arlington, for our AOP program, the entire course is delivered online. They have support from teachers here in the district, but the curriculum is designed and delivered by either Accelerate Education in K-8 or Apex in 9-12. Next one, please, Brenda. This is our headcount and FTE. Brace yourself. This has taken me a long time to wrap my mind around the difference between FTE and headcount. In a traditional system, it's a little simple. In this system, it's not at all. So you'll notice for October 2022, our FTE is up to 216, but our headcount is 188. The reason is FTE is what I'm not sure what FTE stands for.
Full-time equivalent.
There you go.
Equivalent.
But for our on-site kids, they're a full FTE, they're a full-time public school student, and they're a full-time SVLC student. They're easy. For our online kids, it's a little trickier. We serve through SVLC a large number of kids at Arlington High School and at Weston High School. And for those students, we get 0.17 FTE, but Arlington High School or Weston gets their head count. So that's how we have less head count than FTE. And you'll notice that the numbers have gone up every year. Our FTE continues to rise. Our head count has gone down a little bit from last year, but honestly, that number fluctuates every month. And I've got a slide to kind of show that because it's the number of kids who are finishing courses and starting new courses each month, which changes. Next slide, please. This is our ratio of certificated staff to student FTE as of October 2022. So for our site-based and remote, those two categories go together. We're at about 1 teacher for every 30 kids. We have 4.2 teacher FTE and 127 student FTE. For the online, the ratio is wrong. I just realized this afternoon. The ratio should be 1 student to 28 kids. But it's also worth noting that of that 4.3 FTE, over 1.5 FTE are simply teachers that are grading. So a couple of our on-site teachers, they're 0.7 on-site and 0.3 FTE. So they're teaching Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They have a Monday morning time set aside for their student meetings, but then they are grading work. So that of that 4.3 FTE, 1.5 FTE is only for grading. They're not touching learning plans or working with students, making comments and stuff, but not planning their work. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to break down the numbers in a couple different ways to help hopefully make the numbers more meaningful. So again, off to the side, our reported FTE for October is 216 and our head count is 188. But this chart shows sort of where those students are at and who we're counting. So again, our on-site, the 16 kindergartners, we have 16 WSLPs. That stands for Written Student Learning Plan, a lot of acronyms at SVLC. And we are required by law that every student that we're working with has a written student learning plan. And there's a set of details about what that looks like. Our teachers are awesome at it, but it's really documenting what they're learning and how we're assessing it. So it doesn't matter if we have a student for 1 course or an entire FTE, we do their learning plans. So you'll look, I broke it all the way through, and we have a total of 351 learning plans that our teachers are managing, which looks a lot different than the 188 head count, right? You'll also notice that between 3rd and 8th grade, we have a combination of on-site and AOP kids, but we are this year, we have less kids in our K-5 AOP program. than we did last year or the year before. Next slide, please. So this is talking about Arlington School District high school students accessing Apex or accessing AOP. So SVLC, we have 48 students that are full-time AOP. So those are 48 kids that we're counting their head count. At Weston, 39 of their students are accessing our program. They're accessing AOP. So that's roughly a third of the Weston students who are using this program. And at Arlington High School, we have 136 students using the program, with a total of 223 right now. Of our 351 learning plans, 223 are high schoolers working through this online program, which is significant. And also the chart, this is something new that we're measuring this year, the AOP team and myself. We really want to see if we can see a pattern of when kids are coming in, when they're going. And I also want a record, mostly for our registrars, of how much work they're doing. So if you look even just at the Arlington High School, that's 136 transactions between Carrie at the registrar at AHS and our registrar at SVLC, moving them in and out. So that's significant. Next slide, please. Okay, one number a little deeper. And then this is my last one, I promise. These are the Apex enrollments. So for SVLC, if a student is an AOP full-time at SVLC, they're likely taking 3 courses. They take 3 at a time. When we have students from Arlington High School, they're likely taking only 1. But if we look at the number of enrollments that Arlington School District is managing, we're looking at 337 currently, or as of October 19th. So again, our FTE is 216, our head count's 188, 351 learning plans, 223 kids enrolled, and they're taking 337 classes. And they're doing awesome. And that's the next slide. Next slide, please. The number of completed courses as of the 19th of October is 45. So that's 45 spots on a transcript that's been filled in with a grade rather than an F, an incomplete, or a no count. And that's fantastic. Some of those are likely kids that started in summer school and are finishing in AOP. Some are kids who are doing prescriptive courses, which those tend to go a little faster. But nonetheless, 45 have completed, which is fantastic. Next slide, please. So how ALE courses are supporting our district goals. First and foremost, our goal is student learning and achievement. So we're using everything at SVLC is now district adopted. So Apex, our Accelerate Education, and in our on-site classes, we're using the same materials that Post and Howler and all the elementary schools are using. So our kids have access to iReady, My Math, CIA, ReadyGen, My Perspectives, and TCI. Last year, we separated our kinder and first grade course. So we had a combined K1. Last year, we separated it because we feel like those kids with COVID really needed targeted support. We're hoping to separate our second, third grade class. It was our intent to do it this year. We have a very large second, third grade class. We have 27 right now. It's just down to funding. We just need to have enough money for another teacher. We have a classroom ready, but we're hoping, especially with these really young kids who are struggling and have lost some of the foundational skills, we're giving them more structured support. We're using Universal Design for Learning, UDL, across our campus on the on-site classes, providing rich tasks and meaningful learning. AOP, Arlington Online Program, serves all students' needs with an opportunity to catch up or opportunities to advance. So in AOP, it's not just kids who have failed courses that they're making them up. They're in there for a variety of reasons. And we have a fair number who are working to advance. They're working to go quickly. My favorite thing is that we offer choice to families and students. Arlington School District is fantastic at making sure that everybody has a place to belong. And within SVLC, we have 3 different avenues to support that. And then also because of COVID, we've added a weekly social emotional check-in for our K-8 AOP kids. And we're asking our 9-12 kids to come on site, the kids that are uniquely SVLC, so that we can support some engagement. So they're working with teachers and they have a place to kind of check in and reach out, which leads into safe and caring environment. We've moved our AOP lab to a different room. It's larger. They have their own restrooms. So our high school kids who are coming on site for AOP aren't going to the same place as our kinder kids. We're enrolling students with diverse backgrounds and family values, right? It's kids all across the district who are coming for different reasons and different needs, who are looking for a smaller and non-traditional setting. And for many AOP students in the high school age group, the ability to complete their courses remotely means that they're able to meet the demands of life. A lot of them have jobs, a lot of them are working, have health issues or anxiety. So it allows them to continue their education. Resource stewardship. Through ALE law, we do have access. We can access funds for curriculum allocation. So parents can come in and request supplemental curriculum. We have really strengthened our curriculum offerings with our district curriculum. So we're no longer using those funds. I mean, they're funds within our budget, but we're not using that as much anymore. On a rare case, do we order supplemental curriculum for families. We hire staff with a passion for alternative learning. It's a special place to be and it's a different mindset, right? It's not the traditional, everybody does the same thing. And we've got fantastic teachers. We're adding Apex licenses as needed rather than having licenses sit unused. And AOP is allowing Arlington School District to capture and retain student FTE because of the flexibility of the program. And parent and community partnerships. We partner with parents in every way through AOP, on-site. We're using parents and partnering with parents. They're delivering for our on-site instruction. The parents are delivering the instruction on the home learning days. Parents come and meet monthly with our teachers and hear progress, and the students are talking about their progress and setting their goals. So it's a monthly connection. We also have a strong partnership with area schools, other school districts, Darrington, Lakewood, Marysville, Stanwood, and Everett. We do have a requirement to stay at 10% or below for our choice transfers. So we watch that regularly and we're always pretty close. We're always right at like 8 or 9%. And then we have a parent club that's kind of coming back and re-energizing after COVID. And we're hoping to get some student enrichment programs put together. Celebrations, that goes along with our new student leadership team. We have some middle schoolers who have applied for and been selected for a student leadership team, and they're pretty awesome. They're doing announcements, and they're really driving this idea that they want some enrichment projects. And of course, we want them to drive it because their parents are going to say, okay, I'll support it and come and supervise. We have parents joining the SVLC Parent Club and supporting our mission there. Our programs are growing. On site, we only have room in our kinder, first, and sixth grade cohorts. Last week alone, we had 4 parents looking at the 6th grade group. So likely by January, it will be full. Our kinder and first grade are a really healthy size, and we're sort of hoping they don't fill up because they're great at like 16 or 18 kids. Our students are coming to campus regularly to access teacher support and a school learning environment. Our AOP teachers have goals, their own personal goals wrapped around kids coming to campus and engaging. And so we're doing quite a few things to bring them back, and that's working well. And we have increased support this year. This year we have a special education teacher on site for the first time in my SVLC life. And that person supporting K-12 on site and online. We have a school psychologist on site for part-time, half day, 0.5. We have LAP funds for elementary, which is fantastic. We're using those for reading instruction. We have a full-time registrar, which is much needed, and we're very thankful for that. And we have a student support advocate, Rachel Miller, who comes once a week and checks in with our kids and is a great support for parents and families who need her. Our next steps, continuing to add staff and support as we continue to grow. I'm continuing to advocate for a counselor, both academic and social emotional, so that our currently our kids who are high school kids with their transcripts, we reach out to Katie Brown mostly, and she's awesome at Weston, but we'd like to have someone on site eventually. Then we always need more paraeducators, and we're hoping for another teacher for the second and third grade class. And then if we can get that, then we want more classrooms so we can continue to grow. And then we're continuing our focus on our enrollment process. We're the only school in the district that touches all the other 8 schools. We work with every registrar in the district and every principal. So we're continuing to refine our process so that we are efficient and accurate. We continue to refine our monthly progress piece and our ALE compliance. We always want to be compliant. I think that's it. Any questions or comments?
I have
Sure.
a question. Oh, sorry.
Go
Am I
ahead.
interrupting someone on Zoom?
Nope, go ahead.
So I was just, this might sound like a circle, the way I say it, but so we
Okay.
have the online student there's one in 3rd grade. I can't remember the
Mhm.
other grade. So then those teachers are creating their learning plan. So then does that mean like one less student in the classroom, or is that in addition to, like, would their classroom be full, like appearance wise, be one less student, but in actuality, that student is online? Does that make sense?
Sort of. So like this 3rd grade one's a great example because Amanda Andrews teaches our 2nd, 3rd grade class. And in that class, she has 27 kids coming to the on-site program. And then she serves one student in the online program. And that's separate numbers and separate accounting really, but same teacher. So she serves them, meets with them once a week and corrects all their work and helps them before and after her classes. Does that answer it?
I think so. So like normal capacity would be like 28, but then because she has the one more online, she's got 27 in person and one.
Yeah, and I believe that 28th one is waiting for a spot in the class. We're trying to say, we're not trying. We're saying that capacity is at 20 because we're in portables. We're pushing to 22 because we want kids in, especially at the beginning of the year. But Amanda's class was at 27 and it was hard. I don't know, I'm a sucker. And the parents really didn't want their kids online. They really needed in-person instruction and she's fantastic. So we are absolutely capping it at 27. And then that 28th one is doing online, waiting for a spot. And we had a number of them that were on the waiting list that have since gone to different programs or chosen homeschooling or something because they wanted the on-site piece, but we're packed at 27. She's awesome.
Carrie, I had a couple questions about the AOP program.
Yeah.
So my question was, one, I'm very excited for the high school students at all schools that are taking advantage of it. One thing I want to find out is, can they go at their own speed and accelerate their learning and go from class to class and they're passing it? And second question is, what do you find to be the most, if you know, the most common courses that students at the high school level are taking?
I would say the most common courses, most 9th graders are taking health. Over summer school, they took health. They take PE if they don't want to do PE in a traditional PE setting. We have a couple of kids doing academic courses. We have a couple of 9th graders doing some English or some history. But otherwise it varies. And the answer to the first question is we really work in conjunction with their counselors. So some kids really are academically ready to take a course, complete it, take another one, complete it, and move through. We have a handful of seniors that are behind and are working really hard to take courses and complete them in a timely manner. Our district has really great counselors. Our AHS has 4, Weston has 1, and they help us design. They help us know like which class they should take and when. They also tell us how long we should schedule that class so that we can help them be successful. Some kids, when they see that they have a lot of missing assignments, they're overwhelmed and they kind of shut down. So we work really closely with the counselors to make sure we know the students and we're setting them up for success, and also telling them, you know, if they're seniors, let's move it through. This is what you've got to finish to walk across the stage in September or in the spring. So.
Yeah, I really like to see the collaboration that you have. That's wonderful. And I do like the personalized approach that, like you said, you're understanding what the students might be capable of, and just encouraging them before they get kind of too deep into something and it's more than they can handle. So excellent report. Thanks for the information.
Thank you.
All righty. Carrie, I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so the students are doing Apex for high school credit. Are they doing that in addition to all 6 of their classes at the high school, or is it extra, or is it part of their regular scheduled classes and they're doing it in like a computer lab? Or like, how does that
Great
work?
question. So generally we try to keep kids to one class for Apex. And so how that would work is, of the 6 periods, one of them would be an Apex course, and there's an Apex lab at Arlington High School. We have somebody there, Denise, who monitors it. She's a para and runs it. And then one of our teachers goes once a week and checks in with kids to make sure they're staying on track. There's a few exceptions where with Mary Lee's approval and counselor approval, they're allowed to take 2 classes. And so then they would take 2 periods in that Apex lounge or Apex lab. And other than that, if it's more than 2, then they become SVLC students. With kids there are some kids, especially seniors, who are maybe at Arlington High School for 2 periods, and then they're going home and going through classes. So then they would have however many FTE the counselors decide, and they move through as quickly or as slowly as they can, right? For Weston allows 1 class at a time. So again, they have an Apex lab. We have a para in there that communicates with us. And I mean, that's very important. They're a very important piece of this puzzle so that we can make sure that students are accounted for, that they're not just wandering around AHS because they don't have a class. I don't know of any kids, we wouldn't allow a kid to do 6 classes at AHS and an Apex course, because then they would be beyond their 1.0 FTE. I shouldn't say we wouldn't allow it, but I don't think we wouldn't allow it. We would have them do some of that in AOP. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
So I know that the Apex classes, just for the high schoolers, you said it was around 130 students are using them at the moment. So do we think that next semester, when classes change, is that going to really impact FTE?
I believe so. I think we'll get more. We generally we start where we're at now, and then we just grow through the year. So we know from data, talking with AHS, that there was a significant number of kids that got Fs last year in first semester. Those have to be made up somewhere. And so they will likely come to us. And I think that's part of who those kids initially are. You'll notice that our 11, 12 numbers are way higher than 9, 10. Those are usually credit recovery. And we stay in contact with the principals at AHS. And if they say, hey, this is what like around January, they're going to tell us what it's looking like. We call them the F numbers. Then we'll expect more. And we're really able to take it for a while, and then we'll reach out and say, hey, we need more teacher support. But I anticipate it continuing to grow. I dare I say, like, hopefully not too much, right? Because that would mean kids aren't passing their courses. But I imagine it will stay where we're at or higher for the rest of the year, would be my guess.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question.
Are there any more questions from any board members or student advisors? All right. Thank you very much,
You're
Carrie. Very
welcome.
informative.
Thank
And
you.
we appreciate all the work you do to keep all of our kids engaged in learning. We appreciate it. Next up, we'll have our informative assessment data update, and this will be presented by Carrie Henderson Burke, our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. Welcome back, Carrie. We're very excited to hear all about this.
Thank you so much. Long time no see. All right, so we are here to talk a little bit about some assessment data from the spring SBAC testing and our own internal assessment STAR or iReady. So want you to know that this is a little bit of a different approach than we've taken in years past. There's a lot of assessment data that flows through, but in order to make it manageable, understandable, and retainable, this year, this particular presentation is focused on the sections of the strategic plan that are answerable through test data or through our district data. So it does look different than we've seen, probably blessedly different than we've seen in the past. Brevity is the soul of wit. It's sort of the theme for a lot of things. So in terms of these first few slides, we're answering the question, students that made 1 year's growth in 1 year's time from the beginning to the end of school year. This is measured with our STAR assessment. There's some turnover, of course, over the course of the year. So this data is drawn from students who were here at the start of the year through the end of the year, so that we had 3 data points to measure this. But so this is our elementary data. Reading is in green, math is in blue. 1 year's growth in 1 year's time as measured by STAR. One of the unique things that we've seen since COVID is that math in some cases actually outpaces progress and growth in reading. That's a rather new phenomenon for us. But you can see there's some definite high points with our data in terms of the growth kids are making. We see 5th grade math is a bit of a concern for sure. Not atypical compared to other years. Sorry, reading. I apologize. Thank you. Middle school, 1 year's growth in 1 year's time. Remember that middle school math is largely measured by the iReady assessment versus the STAR, because our curriculum in middle school, our math curriculum is Ready Math. And so the iReady assessment accompanies that. So these numbers aren't quite, the bars aren't as tall. So one of the things that we remember over the course when we're looking at this data is remember 2 years of significant impact to the amount of instruction that students received during COVID, right? Our elementary kids came back on campus far earlier than our secondary kids. And so you can see evidence of that. It was still, the amount of instruction was still impacted, but differently for middle and high school kids. Yes.
So for the middle school, this is just the iReady test. And this is the progress from the first test, second test, third test.
Yes, over the
Correct.
course of the year. Yeah. So from where they started to where they ended, they could have been above grade level at the beginning of the test and still made a year's progress, and they're counted, could have been significantly below grade level and made a year's progress, or at grade level and then stayed at grade level by showing progress. And then our high school data. 11th grade reading is, of course, a concern. We had a lower percentage of 11th and 12th graders participate in STAR testing. So that is, it's a smaller sample size, but still a concerning number. Yeah.
Carrie, can I ask another
Yes,
question?
absolutely.
So for the 11th graders
Mhm.
last year, what did they not take the test? Did not all the classes offer it? Is
Right.
it just a small?
Generally speaking, STAR testing happens in your ELA class and in your math class. So for 12th graders, we had some 12th graders that didn't take a typical ELA class. And so there's cleanup that happens with that. The same thing happens to a certain extent with 11th graders, to a lesser extent with 11th graders than with 12th graders. But I don't have a full explanation as to why. We also could have had 11th graders moving into Running Start and Snow Isle that aren't necessarily on campus for that. And so those are some of the impacts to the sample size, or to the number of kids that we're measuring. Okay, so Growth is one measure that we take, but we also ask ourselves the question, black and white, are students at standard, yes or no? So a different kind of question, and that is what we're talking about with third grade reading in the next slide, right? So we have two different measures. The STAR is on the right, where we have 50.9% of our third graders at grade level as measured by STAR. This is a yes, no question, right? It's not growth, it's yes, no. And on SBA, we have less than 50%. Third grade SBA scores are always a bit of an adventure in terms of it's these tiny people's first experience with this kind of testing. SBA is performance-based assessment, right? So it's asking kids to read and apply. It's not simple comprehension. It's not who's the main character. It's not what's the conflict. There are some deeper level questions. Takes quite a bit of perseverance to make it through an SBA assessment. STAR is shorter, about 30 minutes per subject matter. Yes.
And the third graders take this all online.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Both STAR and iReady and SBAC are online.
Do you yet know how this compares to other districts and throughout the state averages in
Well,
the country?
it's interesting. You should ask. You're ahead of schedule. Do you want me to skip ahead? It's a few slides down, but if you can hold on to that question, we'll look at some surrounding districts. Yeah. Okay. 8th grade math, 3rd grade literacy, 8th grade math. Those are the two questions that are asked on the strategic plan. So that's what this addresses. Don't panic. So SBA is on the left, looking at about 20% of our 8th graders last year reaching standard as measured by the SBAC. Only 2.7% on iReady. This is very atypical. We do know that the iReady assessment is in some ways more rigorous than the SBAC. It does require some endurance to get through. It does ask application-based questions. It is also deeply connected to the progression through curriculum, if that makes any sense. SBAC is a broader measure of math than iReady. So the iReady has a 6th grade math assessment. SBAC is sort of K6, right? So keep that in mind. That's one of the reasons iReady is more rigorous and more content-based. STAR math, look at that giant bar. Woohoo, we're excited about that. We do have 8th graders who take the STAR math test, and that's because they're enrolled in 8th grade algebra. Okay, algebra is a high school course, therefore they take the high school math assessment. Does that make sense? Okay, so our 8th grade algebra students are actually technically in many ways starting the year above grade level already. So that's not a huge surprise to have that tall bar. And it represents 53 kids altogether. Now, I said don't panic, but you know, kind of professionally, you look at this data and you say in a very professional way, eek, this is extremely disconcerting and rightfully so. But one of the follow-up questions that Mike Kingman has already asked is what does that mean when we look at other districts? So overall, what I'd like you to do is take a look at the shape of the data. This is Arlington on the left, Stanwood, Camano on the right. Stanwood is one of our, one of our rivals, dare I say, affectionate rivals.
Neighbors.
But
We
they
call them
also neighbors. Thank you. Yes, friendly competitors. We in some ways, or in some areas, Stanwood has outscored us, and in some ways we've outscored Stanwood. That's not atypical for previous years when we're looking at SBAC data. But I do want you to pay particular attention to the 6th grade math down in the green, and 7th grade and 8th grade. They outpaced us on 8th grade for sure, but we're still looking at just over a third of Stanwood 8th graders testing out at grade level. We also have a comparison with Marysville. Again, take a gander at their middle school math, starting with 6th. So we're pretty commensurate, even at 8th grade, a little higher at 6th and 7th. And if you look at 3rd grade math, reasonably close. Lakewood, some of our other neighbors. When you look at the shape of the data, you can still see 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math in all three of these are typical districts that we compare ourselves to. To answer the broader question is, we know our scores, how did other people do? We're not alone in this. That doesn't excuse it, and it doesn't lighten the workload, but we know, I'll say it again, these 3 grade levels missed a lot of math instruction, a lot. And we know starting at 5th grade, there's a pretty significant jump in math expectations for kids, and it's related to fractions, and it carries up through middle school. So,
And Carrie, that it was noted in the WASDA clippings just recently, either today or yesterday, or recently, that this is a statewide, the math, especially at 8th grade, was significant challenge.
yes. So there are a lot of questions to ask, and that's what data does, right? It generally makes us ask more questions than it answers. But so what are we going to do about this? Of course, is always the question. We can look at data and leave it alone, or we can look at data and we can make it useful for our system. So how is this data useful for our system? It certainly underscores the importance of continuing UDL. What specific barriers do our students face when it comes to 3rd grade reading and when it comes to 8th grade math, and everywhere in between? UDL plans to remove those barriers. So what supports are we providing in advance so that the barriers aren't there? At the elementary level, one of the things that we found, thinking we had a really sound established system of number talks at the elementary level, which really teaches flexible thinking, gives kids a lot of access points to think and talk about math, to think flexibly about math so they don't get frozen in what's the algorithm. There's only one way to answer this question. Help me, I don't know what to do. That really did crumble a bit during COVID, quite a bit during COVID. They're hard to do over Zoom. But so elementary is reinstituting the expectation that number talks are a regular part of our instruction. At the middle school, we've had 2 rounds of iReady assessment training for math. One in preparation for the test, helping kids set goals, helping kids become users of their own data. That's great when the kids own the results. That matters a lot. And then also what to do with the results. So one of the reasons we adopted Ready Classroom was because there's a very direct connection between the assessment and skill building. So there's classroom instruction, but there's also a component of the program called My Path that really is designed to fill in skill gaps for kids. So reacquainting our middle school math teachers with how to do that, and also connecting it with remedial programs so that that program is available not just in the gen ed classroom, but also for kids served in special education. We once again have elementary and secondary math teams up and running. Fractions has been a concern for a number of years for us. So Graham Fletcher is a really fantastic math thinker and provider of professional development. He's got some K2 specific information on the foundations of fractions. So we're not waiting till 5th grade to solve the fractions problem that might be grown through grades K and 4. So this year, our K2 math team teachers are really focusing on Graham Fletcher's content that pulls out the foundational skills that build fraction awareness. Our 3-5 is, of course, working on fractions and then looking at math specifically for applying UDL principles and discovering those barriers and filling the gaps. The secondary math learning team is really touching bases again this year with standards of mathematical practice. So by the time kids get to algebra, geometry, and algebra 2, it's obviously more sophisticated math, a bit more complex, and those habits of mind that the standards of mathematical practice address, kids fall back on a lot more as they're having to solve problems that are outside of their skill sets, right? Paying attention to patterns and using models to solve problems. So ensuring that those practices are happening in our secondary classrooms. And then next steps for literacy. We know that there's a huge push at our elementaries and primaries in particular to ensure that our teachers understand the science of reading, phonics, phonemic awareness, those kinds of things. We've also had some curriculum trainings to pull out supports for kids that might be struggling to read. Our open court curriculum is K1. We bought it for K2, provided training for second grade. So they have recent and refreshed materials that support that development. And we also have this hasn't happened yet, but our intermediate grades use the CIA reading curriculum. And we need some refresher on that, on pulling out for kids that are still struggling to decode. And it's a significant barrier to comprehension. CIA can help address that. We have elementary and secondary ELA learning teams as well. They have a data focus this year. And of course, can't have a teaching and learning presentation without universal design for learning mentioned as part of our long-term plan to address the needs that kids are expressing via assessment. That's a lot. What questions do you have?
Carrie, I had a quick question for you. Could you remind me, is there a one curriculum that Arlington School District uses for all elementary grades for math?
Yes. Qualified, yes. So the adopted curriculum is My Math. I'm drawing a blank on the name publicly. That's great. There is an adopted K-5 curriculum, but because we know fractions it'll come to me, I promise, probably at 2:00 this morning. Because we know fractions is a problem, we also have a longer pilot than we ever intended, because why else? COVID. So there at 5th grade, we have San Francisco United School District's math materials that are being used by our 5th grade teachers, because it's strongly research-based and has a history of building success in those core math concepts, like what fractions. So it's much more problem-solving based. The math curriculum for K4 was really published in a different mathematical era.
Okay.
Not
Yeah, I
that
remember.
but it's from a different math era.
Yeah.
Pre-Joe Bowler for us, I guess.
I remember you talking about the San Francisco one when I was on the ACE committee, and that was pretty exciting. I know in Lakewood we use Bridges, and I'm in kindergarten, and I love it because it's a curriculum that we use through the entire elementary grades, and it builds, and I don't know if they call it circular, but it kind of rotates. So we introduce concepts, and then we spiral back to it, and so we touch on these same topics maybe 3-4 times a year throughout the year. And we keep going. We just go a little deeper each time. So I am very happy about that curriculum that I'm using. And I'm sure your teachers are equally excited, but that's key. And I'm glad to see you're recognizing that fractions are a problem, or that is a link that we're trying to establish for grade 5. So thank you very much for sharing all that data.
Sherry, I think that it's the scaffolding that Bridges does and that our curriculum does to scaffold those skills throughout. So they loop back, and then as you move forward, it's a constant looping back and scaffolding and moving forward.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. It is My Math for sure. That's the name of our elementary curriculum. Sorry. What other questions?
Back in the olden days, when I was just a mom with kids at Kent Prairie Elementary School, they used something called accelerated math. Do we still have that? Is that a thing of the past? And I remember iExcel and all the things. Do we still have that?
We have a few smatterings of it. It's a pretty expensive program. Both of them are reasonably expensive programs that are designed to build skills, not necessarily concept. So as we move forward with key components to our math instruction that aren't necessarily curriculum related, number talks are not in our curriculum, right? That is something that we've cycled in to help kids think flexibly about math concepts and numbers. It's gone a bit by the wayside for the sake of, is this doing what we intended it to do? Is there still instruction to support kids that are using a computer-based math program at the elementary level, which tends to, it's a good opportunity. It's an expensive practice opportunity. Let's just say it like that. We can provide different practice opportunities that are more cost-effective. Yeah.
Have we considered extending math class to last longer in middle school? Like, I know that in the middle school, they have 2 periods of ELA. We ever considered they need more time to get this math?
Sixth grade math is also doubled. So that is actually a topic of conversation across our middle schools too. Again, the question is this doing what we intended it to do? And if it's not, what are we going to do? And if it is, what are the costs to keeping it that way? So I would say pre-COVID, you could see a jump in sixth grade math score or reading scores from fifth to sixth grade. Pretty consistently, we saw an increase in achievement, which is interesting because oftentimes kids dip when they enter a new system like middle school. But since COVID, we have not seen that. So it's a unique time to ask that question, I think.
And then remind me, back before COVID, wasn't math scores still a really big problem, that they were not very well?
Yeah,
The kids were not doing well in math overall.
At elementary,
years.
it often, like third grade scores, we have to give academic scores their proper place, right? Particularly SBAC, which is a once a year test that significantly impacts the learning and instructional lives of our students. It's important, but we have to put it in its proper place. So it's important to take third grade data as baseline data. It is achievement data. We do say they're at grade level or they're not. There is a yes or no question, but we also say tiny people, not even to double digits yet. We use this as information, but we don't panic about third grade data, right? Particularly in math. Third grade literacy, we've got to, pay some attention to that and respond pretty systematically. Elementary scores tended to peak at fourth grade in the elementary grade band. Third to fourth, we often saw a nice increase. Drop at fifth, probably fraction related. Sixth, you'd start to climb back up, and then we'd have less concerning scores as kids moved through the system. Now, 3 data points is a trend. I guess that's always been my theme. And so we don't have 3 data points post-COVID. That doesn't mean we don't do anything, but it does mean we say, what other data do we have that provides us important information? For now, STAR and iReady for me provide more consistent, shorter bursts of assessment data that I just think a little bit differently about. It's a bit more responsive than SBAC.
For some students, would homework help?
Homework is a controversial topic because there are some kids that do great with homework. And guess what? It's kids that tend to come from, homework is an equity problem, because if you have parents at home who support it and who provide a space and a time for it and scaffold it, homework is great. But not every kid has that. Homework is often a detriment to kids who are traditionally marginalized. We think of it as more practice, but there's so it intuitively seems like it should make a difference, but it actually has to be incredibly carefully managed. Homework can't cover anything new or different. It should be a review to be done properly and to be used well. And so drill and kill, like to go home and do 40 problems if you already know it, is really demotivating. To go home and do 40 problems of drill and kill if you didn't understand it in the first place is also demotivating. Homework has to be carefully managed to do what we think it should do.
Do any kids in middle school get math homework?
Yes.
Because mine don't, and I would love to have some. Is it available upon request?
You can talk with the teacher.
Yep.
For sure.
I will again. Thank you.
Yeah. But it's also something to be careful with.
I just want to say it's McGraw-Hill for the My Math
Yeah.
curriculum.
Yes.
So
Right.
I was like, because my kids have My Math, but my question was, so I have a third grader and an eighth grader. So I'm thinking about them moving along, like up the grades. And so I'm thinking about the teachers and how they're accustomed to teaching at a certain level, right? So once we hit these lower percentages, how does that affect the teaching and learning relationship? I guess I'm wondering.
So here's a little Arlington math history, right? Starting about 5 years ago, we did some research as a district on the work of Joe Bowler, which talked about the importance of rich tasks that allowed students in a general education classroom multiple entry points into the same problem so that every student contributes to a collective understanding of math, right? They build their own while they work together, each offering the skills and developing the skills where he or she began and moving forward. So that is, it's really important and really difficult to work in math tasks like that. You have to discover them, and you also have to work sort of in conjunction with your adopted materials, right? Adopted materials, my math in particular, like I said, is from a different era. It tends to be algorithm based. It tends to be, here's a worksheet, you can practice that, right? Joe Bowler said concept before procedure. What is addition and what does it mean before you start working with numbers, before you start working with paper and pencil? We build models, we look at pictures, we do a number talk, we help, you know, there's a lot of preliminary work before you get to the paper and pencil, because if there's no concept developed, there's no actual meaning to the algorithm. So, you know, it's a factor. We have teachers who have worked really hard on building a bank of rich tasks.
So if I was a parent and I was paying attention and I was curious, how did my 8th grader do last year on the ESPA? How would I go about finding that and looking at it and then understanding it? And then what can our families do? Because we have super supportive families in our community. Can we offer more, I don't know, like maybe math tutors, or like at the high school, we have Eagle Time where they've got some extra tutors. Do we have anything like that at middle? I'm just really concerned about those middle school math wizards that we're raising, and what can families do, and what more opportunities can we offer to help support?
So on knowing how your students scored on the SBAC, those are available in Skyward in your parent access. They were uploaded back in the old days. We used to send letters home. We don't do that very often anymore. So the scores are available in the system. I think the best thing a parent can do is talk to the kids. When kids own the data, things happen, right? John Hattie teaches us that goal setting and kids doing their own grading is the number one thing we can do as a system to increase achievement. So if kids own the data, talk to the kids about the data. Teachers do. Some teachers are really good about it. It depends on how you treat the assessment, right? But kids need to know how they scored. Kids need to know why they scored, and kids need to know what they learned and what they didn't learn, and what they can do to address that. In terms of opportunities to move kids forward, the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics has sort of a theme, and it's called just-in-time intervention. And that is when you're starting a new unit, classically teachers do a pre-assessment to say who's got what skills and where do I need to begin, right? And so not every, there are also higher priority standards than others. So we ask our teachers to stick with those high priority standards and say, do we need to intervene or not? Does this standard have leverage for future learning? If it's yes, then intervene. If it doesn't have leverage, we've got bigger fish to fry. So just-in-time intervention has been our theme. Math tutoring never hurts anyone, but it, like homework, has to be managed really well and really carefully.
But cooking couldn't hurt. Like
Cooking
if
couldn't
we just
hurt.
did a lot of like, well, we need to double this recipe, and what's 3/4 of a cup times 2. And if we just, did that a lot, it would be really, really handy, right?
Absolutely.
So we should all be making cookies.
Math doesn't live on a worksheet page. Math lives with application and in real life. So anything to bring it out in real life is what it's intended to do in the first place.
Thank you for this very informative presentation. Does anybody else have any further questions? Okay, I think we know where we have work to do. Thank you, Carrie. And those 10th graders, wow, they rocked it.
But I'll say it again, don't panic. The kids are not broken. The kids are impacted, but they're not broken. There's a difference.
Thank you. Okay, next up on our agenda is our last business item, and this is our second reading and adoption of Board Policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences. And we welcome Carrie Helgeson, our Director of Equity and Student Wellbeing.
How do you ever keep all these carries straight? It's a crazy thing. All right. So, yep, I'm here to bring the second reading of our policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences. I was here a couple of weeks ago talking through some of the changes, mainly the changes around our mental health excused absences, as well as where they've placed the COVID wording now in the new policy rewrite. So there weren't any questions or comments in the first reading. So just wondering if there's any that has come up since then.
Silence is telling me that there's no further changes
That would be my impression as
requested.
well.
So do we have a motion to approve policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences?
Make a motion, we approve policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences.
I second.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Board Policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
The policy is approved. Thank you, Carrie. Next up is our informational items portion of our meeting, and we'll hear from our superintendent for the superintendent's report, Dr. Sweeting.
Good evening again. I'd like to share that on Thursday, we are having our community voices and it's on Zoom. All are invited, but registration is needed. So we have that up on our website and we've invited staff, parents, community, and we look forward to that. And what we are going to be asking our community is what is working in our schools, what is not, what needs improvement, and what suggestions do they have for us for the future. So that's on Thursday. Today, I signed a letter of support that is being sent to the U.S. Department of Education, and it's to the Office of Safe and Supportive Schools, and it's a joint effort between myself and all of the superintendents in the ESD 189, and it is we're asking them that they increase the number of credentialed mental health service providers to support the children and youth in our schools. Specifically, that we would recruit, that they would make an effort and do whatever it takes to recruit credentialed mental health providers, to retain the credentialed mental health providers, and sustain these services through a variety of ways and mechanisms, and that they would encourage pathways for this to happen. So I just wanted the board and the community to know that I have signed my name in support of this effort. And then on tomorrow evening, there is an event at the high school, Arlington High School, from 5 to 7, bridging school to work. So that looking forward to that. Some of us are attending that. And I am happy to say and announce that we have received 34 applications to the Budget Advisory Task Force. We asked to have those by Friday. We are narrowing those, which is hard, to 25 individuals. And the criteria there is just make sure that we have every school represented if we can, and that we are just have as diverse a group as we can in many different ways. So we will be notifying the 25 people on Friday of being on this task force. The first meeting is November 8th.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeting. We look forward to all the fun events coming up. Next up, we'll have our legislative update and discussion. That's Director Kelly.
Yes, I don't really have anything to update regarding legislative arena, but I'm looking forward to having those of us who plan on attending the WASDA meeting in Spokane. I submitted my request to participate on a couple days for my school duties, so I'm looking forward to that. But I think it will be great to put us all together in one place. And I think I am signed up for the finance session. I was looking forward to equity, but I think that got snagged pretty quick. So I think some of my other board members will be joining me in attending finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kelly. Next up, we'll hear comments from board members. And I'd like to start with our student advisors. Student Advisor LeBon, are you still with us? What can you share with us?
Yes, I am here. I have nothing to share at the moment. I'm looking forward to the end of our first quarter at Arlington High School. We are a quarter through the year, I guess, in short words. Nothing to update on my end. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you. Student Advisor Schroeder.
I have nothing to update as well. So just thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all the good questions tonight. Director Nat.
Definitely. Last Friday, we went to Student Voices at Kent Prairie, and it's just one of my favorite things to do is go visit the schools and talk with the students. But I was really impressed by the community of students when we were there. Just walking down the hall, I saw a 5th grader and a kindergartner walking together, and the kindergartner kind of dropped a paper towel and he said, the 5th grader said, "Oops, we don't want to leave that there." And he hurried up, and I was like, that is awesome. They're all working together. And I guess that they had at Kent Prairie where the 5th graders could apply for these jobs to be student helpers and teachers helpers. And I thought it was working beautifully. And another highlight of the weekend was buying my tickets for Clue coming at the high school. So I'm really excited to go see that with my family.
Very good. Director Kelly, do you have anything to share?
Nope, nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Kingman.
Looking forward to tomorrow night and nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. I got to go to the football game on Friday night and watch our Eagles crush Inglemoor. It was pretty awesome in the rain. And then I got to watch the cross country teams on Saturday at leagues win. Both the girls and the boys won, and it was just incredible. And I got to see the ROTC kids helping direct traffic and park cars with cheerful attitudes and all the energy that I wish I could bottle up. And in the rain, they were just so lovely, and just so impressed by how hard our kids are working and how they are able to participate in all these wonderful things, and how much family and community support I was able to witness. And it's just really, really great. I did look up my 8th grader last year's math scores for the SBA because I was very curious how he did, and he did not pass at grade level, surprisingly, but his score was the very top number of that step 2. So if he had gotten one more question right, he would have been in the passing range. So it's kind of curious how many other kids are like right there, so close, and I'm sure he'll be fine. But yeah, math is really exciting and interesting. So just really, really hoping our kids take it seriously and really work hard on math. I'm just really worried about them. So that's all I have. Our next meeting is coming up we have our special board meeting event, that's Community Voices, on the 27th. And then we have a study session on Monday, November 7th at 5 p.m., which is a little bit earlier than our normal 6 p.m. And then we have a regular board meeting on November 14th, Monday at 6 p.m. So if there's nothing else for business, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. The meeting is adjourned. Everybody have a great night and drive safe.